This is AgGrad Live,
We have all of the different segments within the cotton.
the show that explores what it's really like to work in the ag industry,
So making sure that we get policy and regulatory issues
straight from the people who live it every day.
Hey everybody, it's my favorite time of the week that we call AgGrad Live, where I get to just sit down and have a conversation with an interesting person that's doing big things early in their career in agriculture. We call it AgGrad Live because we record it here live on Facebook, but it also gets turned into a podcast called AgGrad Live and gets published on our YouTube channel. So this has been really fun because we've been going through the AgGrad 30 under 30 and learning more about them as individuals and kind of what got them to the point they're at today. So very pleased today because we have on somebody who not only is doing really impressive work in his entrepreneurial path, but somebody I consider a friend. And Stephen Brockshus. Stephen, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, Tim. It's my pleasure.
Well, I know you have been really kind of hot on the trail and building your company, so I appreciate you taking the time. You're the founder and CEO of Farmland Finder based in Iowa. Can you just maybe start off by telling us what is Farmland Finder?
Farmland Finder is a real estate tech industry player. And so what we do is we leverage data and technology to make the process of buying, selling, valuing farmland a lot simpler than it is today. So it's really interesting. I grew up on a fifth generation family dairy farm and have experienced the pains of what it's like to try to be able to afford ground or expand our operation or get connected with someone who can help us expand our operation. So we're tackling a lot of the pains that come from kind of a traditional real estate transaction in agriculture and reducing some of those inefficiencies with technology.
And I think one thing that's really, really interesting about your story, Stephen, is that you started this company so early. In fact, if I'm understanding correctly, you started it before you even graduated college. Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or at one point did you say, like, wow, I might not have to go work for somebody, I could like do this myself?
Well, Tim, growing up on a farm, I didn't know what entrepreneurship, the word itself meant. And looking back, my grandpa, my grandma, my dad, uncle, they're all very entrepreneurial. What I love about growing up in agriculture is, there's not this, you leave home and you go to work and then you come back home and you spend time with your family. I loved going to the farm with my dad, milking cows. When we got punished, mom would say, hey, you can't go to the farm with dad, And so when you talk about how that translates into a career or me starting to identify what does it look like to have a business of my own from a lot of experiences growing up, but also throughout my time meeting other people who had started businesses. So it's really interesting, like I said, not knowing what entrepreneurship was and then kind of stumbling into it. And it's been a journey ever since.
And when you started in college, what did you have in mind that you would do? And when was it along the path that you said, I actually might be able to make this work going out on my own?
Well, I was at Iowa State University, and my what would have been my junior year, I was elected to national FFA office. And during that year, I got to travel all over the country and meet incredible people, students, ag teachers, business professionals. And what was really interesting when I was doing partnership visits with donors of the FFA, there's a lot of individuals who were really passionate about FFA and helping the future of the industry. And a lot of them were very passionate about helping others in general. And the way they had channeled their passions and their values was through their own businesses. And that's really what turned me on to potentially starting a business of my own, because I felt like how they spent their time and their values and what they wanted to do with their life was very much aligned with how they spent their time every day building a company. So when I got back to Iowa State after serving as a national officer for FFA, I walked into our College of Ag. There was a poster up that said Ag Entrepreneurship Initiative. And I said, entrepreneurship, I think that's like having your own business. And so I walked in, this was in March, and I said, hey, I want to intern with someone who's starting their own business so I can learn how to do that. And the first thing they said is, well, it's March, you're a little late to find an internship. And then she's like, but leave your resume, we'll see what we can find. And that next summer, I actually ended up interning with, he was our state FFA president from Iowa, who had his own business a few years out of college, and got to work side by side with him, learning what it takes to build a business. And that's what put the nail in the coffin for me, of, yes, this is how I feel like I can best spend my time and use my talents to be able to fundamentally improve different parts of the agricultural industry and help people. And so that got me really excited about it, and then was able to kind of identify an idea and grow the business from there.
Cool. And from that internship experience, what what stands out as you look back on that as, either a key moment or kind of a revelation that made you realize, like, yes, this is the type of work I want to be doing with my life?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. What I realize is anytime you're starting something new, is you really need to have the ability to learn as rapidly as you can. So I was actually standing on a grain barge loadout system along the Mississippi that summer, doing customer discovery, learning, what pain points do they have, what trouble do they have, how can we help, and it was really interesting because I hadn't spent a lot of time, along the river, and I talked with the person, and right after I got done really learning kind of through the formal checklist of questions, he's like, well, you want to go check some other stuff out? And that's kind of like off the clock. I'm like, sure. And so he started driving me through the caves that are right along the bluff of where the Mississippi is, and it borders up against the edge of Iowa. And so we're going through these caves, and they've got storage for grain down there. They've got storage for salt and for gravel to put on the roads in the winter. And as I was talking with this gentleman, I started to realize that he was excited about what he was doing every single day. He was passionate, and we were having earnest dialogue about what we could do to make things better. And as we were just sitting there, I started to realize, there's no formula, or there's no system, or there's no straight path to building a company. But if every single person starts to work to do what they know best how to do, but have that learning spirit and that learning attitude, then it can go a really, really long ways. And so, there's been a lot of really foundational moments for me, and things that have built up to both what's caused me to start a business, but then also, how I got the business idea and what has now become Farmland Finder. And it's just been an incredible journey to be on.
Yeah, how did that journey start? So you come off this internship, and you already had a suspicion that you wanted to get into entrepreneurship, and then you validated it through that internship experience. How did you end up hatching the idea that has now become Farmland Finder? Was it like a brainstorm on a whiteboard where you're like, what problems exist out there that I want to solve, or like, how did that kind of come about initially?
Yeah, well, I'm a journaler, and so I use writing to process a lot of my thoughts. And as I was traveling for FFA, and then all throughout college, and even growing up, I'd just jot down notes, things that were intriguing, things that stood out to me. And I took a note, and it was actually in January of 2015. I looked back the other day, and it said, do something online in agriculture. And then there's a brainstorm list of a million different ideas of how you could leverage the internet, in the agricultural industry. And so I had this notebooks and pages of different thoughts, ideas, business ideas, problems that I've experienced on the dairy growing up. And when I got to college, after that internship, I took a class called Agricultural Entrepreneurship 101 and with Kevin Kimley. So walked into the room, and the first thing they have you do is identify areas or problems that you've experienced in agriculture that you think might be worth tackling. And so I opened up that notebook and started digging in. And it was really interesting because as I looked at those ideas, I'm like, well, what could be meaningful? What could be helpful? And I saw the one of do something online, and there was a tag underneath it of connect people in ag real estate. And that one stood out to me because just a few months before that, I was at a land auction with my dad up in Ocheyedan at the town hall, right where our farm is. And I was standing there, and the auctioneer had a picture of the farm from the side of the road. He had a soil map he printed off from the USDA, and that was all the information that he shared about the farm. And then he started doing his bid call, and you've got some neighbors bidding on it who are getting red in the face. You've got we call him Chicken Man. He's a local chicken farmer who's in the back room. He's got his pad and paper. He's penciling everything out, making very calculated bids. And as I sat in that class and I started thinking of these kind of inefficiencies in that market, or how little access to information there is and how many different dynamics there, I thought maybe there's something there. And so the first step, I didn't really have the idea of exactly what it'll look like, exactly what it'll do. But there's a lot of these kind of foundational snippets and seeds that were planted. And then from there in the class, they challenge you to go ask people to see what problems they have. So I decided to focus in on ag real estate and discover what problems there were. And then eventually a solution came around as well.
That's great. And at what point was it, I know you're still in college at that time. At what point was it that you said, okay, if this happens, I'm going to go all in upon graduation? Like, this is going to be my thing. Or is it just something that kind of came about organically?
Yeah, it was really something that I kind of slid into, is what it felt like. That was my junior year. That semester, I started talking to landowners, brokers, appraisers, ag lenders, farmers, institutional land investors. And I started to identify that every single group of people is spending hours and hours researching the land market so that they have the best intelligence and can make really great decisions. Mm-hmm. But the market's very opaque and fragmented and fractionalized. And so they had to spend a lot of time to extract that information. And so my junior year, I started tracking farmland sales in an Excel spreadsheet and selling that to people I had talked to who said that they're researching this information. And then from there, I found some software developers. We actually built a platform around it and started to make this information accessible, bring some transparency to the market. And it was my senior year. I was going to school for agricultural education with a minor in entrepreneurship. And I had to decide if I was going to student teach for a semester or not. And at that point, that was a really interesting decision to have to make. I sat down with my advisor, Dr. Italic, who's an incredible professor. I respect him highly in the ag education world. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, well, with the business, would you have a chance to continue doing that afterwards? Or is it something you think would die if you didn't focus on it for a semester? And I had the realization by that point, we had a few paying customers, we were building software, and I realized I couldn't give myself, to both of those, student teaching and building the business, and have either of them be successful or enjoyable. So I had to focus in on what I saw. And so that was really where I had to make a decision. But everything up until that point, it was really just kind of sliding into it and continuing to build and see if there was something there.
Yeah, I think that's so key, though. I mean, what you did is a lot of people, especially nowadays, when they think of entrepreneurship, they think of, okay, have an idea and then go raise a bunch of money. But the validation stages you went through early on, especially where you actually had a product people would give you money for, where you could say, all right, I'm on to something, because when it comes to giving me money, that they are, and there's a real value here in what I'm doing. I think that is becoming a little bit too rare. I love that that's how you came about it. And then I think you led to where you wanted to really fuel the fire, and you actually did get some investment. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So right after graduating, I graduated in May of 2017. We started getting checks from investors. Right after that, we raised a good little round of capital. And from there, we started growing the business and growing what we were doing. But we also started to hone in on what are the trends in the industry and what are the core problems people have when trying to buy, sell, or value land. And it was really interesting because we found that today, processes, if you go to auction, it can be really emotional, and you don't know what it's going to sell for. If you put a listing out there, you never know what the time frame is. There's all these uncertainties. And so over time, it's turned from, hey, we're just aggregating this data and having people pay us for insights from that, to how do we start helping connect these people to buy and sell land in a fun, enjoyable, self-directed, transparent way? And so it's been really interesting over the last couple of years since I've dove in full time. We built the team up from just me working on it to a team of 10. We're based here out of Des Moines, Iowa, and really working to change how people interact with the agricultural real estate industry.
Nice. For those that may be watching and are interested in entrepreneurship themselves, I'm sure there are things that now that you're into it for a while, maybe you didn't realize about the work, about the job that are challenging. For you, what are some of those big kind of unexpected challenges you've had to face in growing this business?
There's a lot of them. From a high level, when I was first getting started, I always felt like if I share my solution, someone's going to take it, steal it, run with it. And that's just something that really inhibits a lot of founders. And so my professor, Kevin Kimley at Iowa State, told me, he said, hey, Stephen, most people's ideas and businesses succeed because not enough people know about them, not because the idea was stolen. And that was a real shift in mindset. And once I started sharing, this is what we're thinking, and not having all the answers, but saying this is based on what we're learning, where we think the market could be or what the solution could look like, and being open to receptive feedback, that really changed a lot of the trajectory for us, just being willing to lean into that. Another really big thing that's been huge as of late has been just picking up the phone and calling people to problems. So right now we're going through and trying to understand some of the legal structure, and there's plenty of time with attorneys and CPAs and people all across that board. And so I was on the road yesterday, and so I just picked up the phone and called out other entrepreneurs, other business people, other people who I'd known had experienced these problems, and just asked, hey, this is what my challenge is. Is there any way that you can help? And I've learned that if you're going to make things happen, whether it's in sales, whether it's in partnerships, whether it's in solving problems, picking up the phone and calling and getting and working through it, vocally, you actually make stuff happen. Emails and everyone's email backlog gets really filled. And so it's been a lot of lessons, from beginning all the way to where we're at, a lot of mistakes that have been made, but it's been a really fun process. And I'd encourage anyone who's interested or has an inkling of wanting to start a business on their own, is start learning today. You don't have to dive in and, quit your job and then start a business. You can start learning and doing something on the side until it gets to a point that you really have to commit yourself.
Well, one of the things I think you're modeling very well, whether someone wants to go into entrepreneurship or just in their career or life, is a lot of people will ask about mentorship. And number one, I don't think you need to have like one mentor that wears the job title of your mentor or anything like that. But number two, what I found people get wrong a lot about mentorship is they want to start with the mentor and then kind of like figure out where to go from there. And I think what you're modeling so well is that if you kind of know the direction you want to go and try your best until you run into a challenge and then ask for specific help related to that challenge, it's so much easier for you to get the help you need. And so rather than kind of sitting there and like, oh, I need a mentor so I can figure out what to do with my life, try things, get out there. And like you said, so you don't have to go all in, but try some things. And then when you run into challenges, then have a specific question. I think that, that's just so critical. Is there a time maybe a customer or an investor, something you could share with us where you just felt really validated in the direction you were going? Either a customer said, hey, this really helped me with this, or an investor said, I really believe in you because of that, or just something you could share where it really kind of encouraged you to keep going despite some of these challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you're starting something, it takes way more time, way more hours, way more money than you could ever anticipate. It also causes more stress than I thought. I've been stressed in my life. And then you start on the roller coaster of starting a business, and there's just a lot of things to learn. And so when learning and growth happens, that comes from a lot of pressure. And so, it's been a really fun experience and challenging experience. There's a lot of moments in between that, and something on the software is not working, or a support call and someone's upset and frustrated and complaining. And then just minutes later, someone will shoot me a note and say, hey, this just saved us 6 hours. So I don't have to do all this research. That's incredible. Or one of the more recent ones, we're testing this business model of how do we directly connect, buyers and sellers through this online network. And so we had unprompted someone in our network raise their hand and say, hey, I'm looking to sell my property. My dad passed away from cancer a few years ago. We sold the rest of the land to neighbors, but now we've got a property that none of the neighbors want. Can you help us? And so we have started to build up a profile of active buyers, and we looked and it fit pretty much exactly what one of our buyers in our network was looking for. So we sent it over to them, and within 3 days, they had shaken hands, had the deal done. And that to me was really exciting because we're very hands off. And it was just 100% the software, 100% the network being able to connect and come together. And I've talked with both the buyer and seller after that, and just the peace of mind that both of them have, especially the seller, where he was really stressed and frustrated and worried. And he said, man, that just saved me a world of hurt. It saved me a lot of headache. And his siblings. So it's just really cool when you get those customer stories or those moments where you do find success, because they are few and far in between, especially as you're building it up. In high school, I was in wrestling. And one thing that our coach, Coach Neg, said all the time was that, you spend hours and hours and hours practicing to go out on the wrestling mat for 6 minutes. Right. And so you have to drill into you that delayed gratification of work, just for a little bit of payoff. But that payoff is totally worth it, especially in what we're doing when we make someone's life a little bit easier.
One thing that I hear a lot of people who are thinking about doing something entrepreneurial, they're concerned about sort of competition and, what happens if some company with a bunch of money, builds a product that competes with mine and, like the Shark Tank thing, like squishes me like a bug. How do you balance that about, number one, you can't let it be so debilitating that you don't build what you think, deserves to belong in the world. But number two, you don't really want to put all the effort in just to find out that, somebody else can come along and take away all of your business. How do you sort of wrestle with that concept?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous focus on solving the problems of your customers, or a ridiculous focus on making their life so much easier that they love you and would want to keep on using your service. So we do keep tabs on competitors in the competitive landscape. There's no one that's doing exactly what we're doing, but there's a lot of players in this space. And so we do keep tabs to see what's going on, see if there's anyone that's kind of getting really close, or competing for market share and where we're at. But we really focus more so, rather than on competition, on our customers, and really zoom in and help individual people or individual businesses and start to grow that way. That's where we will find a lot of success. If people love you, they're going to keep using you. If they don't, they're going to look elsewhere. And so I think that's where it's got to start.
Makes sense. It does. So as you've grown from just you to now a team of 10 people, what have you realized, as you were able to get the opportunity to delegate some things, what have you realized, like, this is what Steven needs to do? Like, no matter how many people we grow and people I can delegate stuff to, what are the responsibilities you had to maintain for yourself through that process?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, when I started, Tim, I was the person tracking sales and auctions and results. I was the person reaching out to everyone. I had spreadsheets and I was emailing and sending them and doing billing and invoicing. And then I started trying to learn how to code and build some software myself. And so over time, we've been able to hire teams and hire people, and bring people on board to manage. And through it all, I've learned, and this is anyone who starts their business, one of the biggest pieces of advice I got from a mentor of mine, Jason Berger. He's got a business in Des Moines, and it was really cool. He said, Steven, you need to find a way to stop working in your business and start working on your business. And the second he said that, it was just like the light switch flipped. It was great. I've done Strengths Quest before. My top strength is strategic. My second one is belief. And so I'm like, if I can really tap into my strengths, things that empower me, things that I can focus on the entire business systems, and put systems and people and empower other folks to really solve the problems and get us where we want to go. That gets really exciting for me. So I really like that strategic, the high level, the working with people to solve their problems and come up with a solution, empowering people to make that happen. But then on the other side, I think for me, no matter where our business goes in the entire life of it, it's really important that I do stay grounded in some of those nit-grit details. So I'm, the master agronomist on the team and build all the agronomic infrastructure into this that we do. I still am very hands-on with our clients. I'm still pretty hands-on with our data research team, pulling in everything and checking in. So I'm very in tune with what's going on, and I'm seeing how we can improve it, but really being able to pull myself up and work on the business as much as possible.
That's great. Yeah, I'm always most impressed with founders like yourself that just seem to be so laser focused on customer. It just, for somebody like you, I know it seems obvious that, of course, you're going to be focused on your customer. That's who pays you. But I end up talking to a lot of people that seem to get distracted by, a lot of the other sort of exciting things that go on in being an entrepreneur, and kind of lose some of that focus. So I really think you do a great job there. Is there anything that you thought you were good at before you became an entrepreneur, and building a business as a way of sort of making you totally self-aware of where your inadequacies, or at least that's been the case for me. What's something that you kind of thought you were good at, and then once you got into it, you realized, oh, this is really better for someone else to do?
That's a great question. I feel like Donnie Smith, the CEO of Tyson Foods, one time he said, you need to learn to be okay with and settle for someone else's best. And he didn't say that in a derogatory term, or like, hey, I'm better than you. But really, I thought I was really good at delegating to other people and empowering them, especially really early on, that I have I had a vision in my head, and I thought I had to share with people every step to get to that vision. Whereas, especially as of late, as we've hired more and more team members, is if I can just point people in the direction that we're going and still clear vision and rely on their expertise, and trust them, and be okay with their best, then as a whole we can get a lot more done as a team. And so that can be a painful lesson to learn sometimes, and it can take a lot longer than what you'd think, but it is really important to build up that team of folks around you that are experts that you can empower and inspire, and then trust them to do way more work, because they'll get you a lot farther than if I'm going to sit here and read coding books and take online coding classes and figure out how to make this happen, and read sales. Like, I can't be an expert at everything. I can know a little bit, but if I find people who are experts, that really helps.
Yeah, that's such a delicate balance of like giving someone the freedom to get their job done in their own way, but also the support to feel fully empowered to do it, and trying not to cross either of those boundaries. It's such a fine line, but I think that's the skill, right? I think that for any management, whether you own the company or work for the company, if you're managing others, you really have to find that right balance between every support and resource you can provide, but none of the micromanaging, sort of suffocating them from doing the job well. It is a challenge, and I know both that you and I grew up through the FFA program and learning a lot about leadership, and then trying to apply that in more of a management context. It can be a challenging thing, but it's something that when you do right, it's wonderful for all involved, and especially for the culture and team dynamic. What's your biggest focus right now? Obviously, you've got a million things, I'm sure, on your plate. But as you look to the next, we're about the halfway mark of the year. So if you look at the second half of 2019 here, what's top of mind for you?
Yeah, from my side, you mentioned a lot of focusing on the customer. I've been really diving in and falling in love more and more with our customers. I think the other really important note, and a lot of people miss this side as well, is you don't know what your business will turn into in the future. And so not only do you need to love your customer, you need to really love the problem that you're solving. And when we look at that, I've been really honing that in and trying to understand our problem. Really, our problem isn't access to information in ag real estate. The problem is that buying, selling, valuing land is filled with a lot of pain points, that entire process. And so I've really started to dig in and understand, what causes frustration, what causes friction. Like that individual who sold his land and was able to do it really quickly through our network. His pain points, there's so many of them. I mean, his father passed away, a few years ago. So he has memories farming with his dad. He has memories of what it was like to be on that ground. And now him and his siblings own this property. And there's a lot of emotions that go through the actual process of selling. They did an auction for his the rest of the estate and all of the equipment and all of the physical goods. And he said it was just so hard for his family because there's so much involved. And so it's a really delicate time. And so I'm learning to fall in love with that problem of he's experiencing what does it take to actually sell this ground and do that with dignity and respect to my father. But what does it look like when I've never sold ground before? And so it's really interesting. When we look at the next 6 months, we're in the process of raising capital to continue to push towards a world where buying, selling, valuing land is frictionless. We're really working on building up relationships with advisors and investors who can help us solve those challenges that are involved in that transaction process, that are involved in getting the right information so that you have confidence in it, so you have that transparency, so you have consistency, so you have reliability. So I'm really spending a lot of time just focusing on kind of the high level side of things. And then the other thing, especially as we get closer to closing our round here in the next couple of months, we'll be building out more and more team members. And so spending a lot of time right now recruiting some pretty powerhouse people that can help us solve problems and move towards that vision. So it's been an exciting time here in Iowa, and for the chance to talk with you, Tim, as well as everything you're doing at EdGrad. I'm a big fan, really big fan.
Hey, I really appreciate that. And I mean, with all of those obligations you have, you've got investors, partners, customers, employees, candidates for future jobs. You've got a lot of people wanting your attention and wanting, your help and wanting your feedback. And how do you balance that with sleeping and eating and like having some semblance of balance? How do you do that?
So one trick that I learned from this organization I'm part of, it's called the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, and they tell you to focus on what matters or measure what matters. There's a book by John Doerr that talks about what you focus on, what you focus on and what you measure gets results. And so we've got personally in my own life, I have a monthly dashboard that I have. What are my yearly goals? Where am I moving the needle? What do I want to focus on? What are my themes for the year? I also have a business dashboard that I'm updating monthly and just looking at all the key metrics. So, what gives me more peace of mind, where I really feel really frazzled, Tim, is when I don't have a framework or I don't know, how I'm going to, what the next step is or where I'm going. So I'm okay if there's uncertainty as long as I have a vision and a plan. And so part of that plan is having these dashboards that spend a lot of time. What are the metrics that matter? Where can I move the needle? And then it's really easy once you decide this month or this quarter, what you are going to focus on and what you're going to measure yourself on for success by the end of the month. It's really easy then to start saying no to things that don't move that needle, or saying yes to more things or digging into more things that do have potential to move the needle. And so that's how I kind of approach, feeling progress, knowing that I'm going in the right direction. But it is hard. I used to think, I could maybe start in the morning, not until 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And then I'll work kind of throughout the day and work a little bit at night. And that any consistency gets blown out the window when you're on a mission for something. But if you do have that vision and that mission and that's consistent, then the rest of life will fall into place.
Well, I mean, this stuff is so relevant for me personally. I could talk to you for hours on this, but I really appreciate the time this morning, Stephen. I encourage everybody out there to go to farmlandfinder.com and check out the work Stephen's doing. I mean, whether or not you are in the market for farmland real estate or perhaps selling some, or even if that's an interest for you or not, I think just checking out the work Stephen's doing is really, really, it's just impressive, Stephen. So thank you. Congrats on the AgGrad 30 under 30. Very, very well deserved, and really appreciate you taking the time to be here this morning.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate everything. And it's been great. And I hope that everyone in the AgGrad network continues to listen to this guy because he's got some pretty good tips and get some really awesome people. So I love listening to the podcast and really appreciate being on.
Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate it as well. If you only caught bits and pieces of this on Facebook, you can always subscribe to the AgGrad Live podcast or AgGrad on YouTube. But we will sign off. Have a great 4th of July next week, and we'll be back the following week with another AgGrad 30 under 30. Thanks again, Stephen.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for joining AgGrad Live. Visit aggrad.com, that's AGGRAD, to join the community, create your profile, and learn more about careers in the agriculture industry.